you make of it what you put in, right? I think that's the key to the success.
The price is something that I earn once. It's like when you buy a new car. Well, I haven't bought so many cars. The relationship and the friendship that I'm building with you, Tiffany, and with you, Julian, is way more important than the price. The problem was not my dad, but also sometimes the structures
That you can't control children, but they are a reflection of the parents.
within the system. And that's when I realized that the point where all the inequality is raised, is starts, is in this inequality of parental leave.
Thank you for being here. This is the Lead Together podcast on Cocoy.ai, empowering the next generation of leaders through building relationships and conversations in order to find and do what makes them happiest in life. Welcome, everyone, to Cocoy.ai. I am honored to have Carlos and Julian, my co-host, on board for this special episode of the Cocoy podcast. Welcome, Carlos. Julian, I'd love to let you introduce yourself, and then Carlos, followed by you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Julian. I'm based in Santa Cruz. I spent half of my career in Europe, the other half in the Bay Area. And over the years, I specialized in project management, strategy execution, and business transformation. Today, I'm leading the global project management department at a large biotech. But aside from work, I'm also the proud dad of two little boys, 2 years old and 3 months old, named Jack and Jude. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to discuss about this, how to basically cope with this work-life balance. So very glad to be here. Also wanted to mention that Tiffany, we've been working closely together since pretty much day one of this amazing Stanford Lead Program, and you've really been my allies, one of my closest allies since day one. So it's an honor to be here on your podcast today.
That is so awesome. I believe that's probably where both Julian and I met you or saw you first. I think, Carlos, you were an ambassador for the Stanford Leads program, and you were larger than life. And I think you got all of our team to commit to doing the Building Power to Lead course with Professor Pfeffer. And so I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we can continue.
Simply, I'm Carlos Santos. I'm a dad. I have been living in several parts of the world because of the career of my dad that was a diplomat. After that, I studied in different parts of the world. Like I got to meet wonderful people that have made me aware of like cultural differences all over the place. Now, let's say I'm in a career break. Like I'm originally from Ecuador. Now we live in Germany, in Munich. But because of the insecurity of my country, we decided to come to Germany. I received a scholarship from the Korean government to go to Ecuador to like go to London and to China to study. But then I had to go back to Ecuador for the double amount of the time. My wife that I met in China, and she's German, she came with me to Ecuador for 4 years. But then with the insecurity and having kids and seeing how there were like two attempts of coup d'etat in less than 3 years, she said, "Okay, we need more security for our family." So we decided to come here, and as she took one big one for me, I'm taking one big one for her also. That's me in a nutshell.
That is so interesting. I didn't realize you were in Germany. How has it been? How long has it been?
I've been there, or I've been here already for 1 year and 3 months. For me, like the experience of being in Germany per se wasn't so different because I studied in Switzerland for years, and like the cultures are alike, let's say. But yeah, the language is different because in Switzerland I had to speak French, and now I have to learn German. Like again, I always say like Munich is a fantastic city. People are amazing. You can ride your bike wherever you want to go. The city is clean. You feel safe. It's also very equal. In the summer, we went with my wife to one of the most exclusive places in the whole Germany, where there was like a public pool, and we paid €6 or €8 per person, and we were like in the most exclusive area of the whole Germany. And for me, that was like insane just to think like how inclusive the German society is. Because in Ecuador, like the division, and in other countries also, like the division is so high that that creates a lot of social unrest. And for me, this is something that I really love about Germany.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
If c'est du coup.
Oui, aussi. Mon français, c'est beaucoup mieux que l'allemand.
I kind of just want to dive right in. That makes me think of you talked about being able to see something that is a more equal society. How has that been for you in your day to day lives? Are you finding that you have to adjust or that everybody is adjusting around you?
I think it's the most like if I would be like a bit proud. I would say I think the politically correct question would be to say that I want to meet people halfway, but that's not true. Like I need to adapt to the society where I live. Like, and I've seen this in so many people that go abroad with this like cultural dominance, let's say, and you want to impose your norms. But no, if you want to adapt to the society, you have to understand like the peculiarities and the nuances of each country. For example, when I was in China, when you discuss with a Chinese, it's very rare that they will tell you no directly. Like they give you excuses or maybe later. In my city, in Quito, is the same. It's like people don't tell you no directly, but they say más tarde, later. And like here in Germany, no, the people are super direct. And there are like just like these small things, like in your birthday, for example. If you tell one day in advance in Germany, happy birthday to someone, you are wishing them bad luck, right? And every country has their own peculiarities that are unique that you can only understand by living there. That's why I love a quote by this philosopher of language that is called Wittgenstein, that he says the limits of my language are the limits of my world. The more you understand languages and cultures, is like the better you can adjust to different people all over the world. And I feel also nowadays we try to embrace this cosmopolitan view of the world. But when I was in Ecuador, I would tell my students like, okay, usually the cosmopolitan view of the world is like more or less the European or the American or the Western dominated view of the world, right? Why? Because, for example, in France, you have like amazing cineasts like Godard, like historical ones that went to the US in the early years. But for me, it's very funny to see like within Europe, every country has a very rich cinema tradition, but still the biggest blockbusters come from the US. And in a way, that imposes the whole narrative that we are allowed to live. And going back to my main point about cosmopolitan thinking, is like if I all of a sudden would come here to this interview dress in a Nigerian dress, you will be thinking like, what is he doing, right? So there are certain narratives that get to impose over the other ones. And for me, like one thing that I've learned over my life is also like now we live in a world where more and more cultures are dying, and it's very important to understand like these cultures they bring so many richness to the world, dishes, food, phrases. Like I was in Ecuador one time and I was talking to a French girl and she said something like j'ai la tête comme un pastèque. I have the head as a watermelon, but if you translate it, and that happens in every language, if you translate it, it doesn't make any sense, right? Every language comes with its richness, and I think it's something that we need to preserve as a society, as a world.
Well, speaking of that and your personal brand, what do you value or what do you want to be known for?
So for me, that's something I've been thinking a lot because when you're working, like you're always like acting as a fireman, like turning down fires, especially when there's no planification or strategic leadership or understanding of your values. So one of the biggest understandings of the Stanford Lead Program has been to understand my values and my purpose. And my purpose is I want to make the world a better place for my three daughters. That sounds a bit naive or a bit like too much, but I can do that in very specific actions, right? Like I champion like causes that talk about equality, that talks about like promoting justice in the workplace, gender inequality regarding like the salary gaps that there is between people. Also, now that we live in a world where climate change is dominating all over the place, at the end of the day, also climate change is affecting more women than men. So it's an issue that affects everything. And there's also the topic of intersectionality, right? And for me, it's something that I would love to live in a country like Ecuador with the security of Germany, but that doesn't exist. And so it's very important to understand like the causes of things, what causes a society to be so unfair and unjust. So going back to your question, which are my values? Spirituality, honesty, and justice, right? And for me, I love this philosopher that I used to make jokes with Professor Malhotra and Ken Shots that they are amazing of the values-based leadership class, because usually in political philosophy there are two schools of thought, and usually one is roles, right? One is Bentham with utilitarianism, and the other one is Nozick, Hayek with libertarianism, right? But I prefer the one I love the most is roles. Like is that is this idea of the veil of ignorance. Like if before all of us were born, right? And I would know if I wouldn't know if I was gonna be born in the body of Carlos, and maybe I had a chance to be born in the body of Tiffany or in the body of Julian. we will all make sure that all of our opportunities for all the three of us are equal. But just for seeing one another, we know, like, just because I'm from South America, or like you are from France living in San Francisco in the Bay Area, or because your parents or your great grandparents were from China, like that already creates a lot of differences within societies, right? And for me, I really like this idea of roles, like how do we construct societies where institutions dominate the discussions and that everybody has equal access to opportunities.
When you were talking about your daughters and trying to make a better world, I know you became a strong advocate of paternity rights, paternity leave. I was really curious to understand a little bit more how you go after defying those stereotypes that you mentioned, and also wanted to hear you about where it all started. Was it from the first day you had your first daughter, or was it something that you thought before it gradually increased? It resonates a lot.
This is a topic that has been evolving in my life ever since I was a kid. Like, I come from a very political family in Ecuador. My grandpa, he was ambassador of Ecuador in Russia and Cuba during the Cold War. Right, I have an uncle that was a minister of energy of the right political party. So I have everything in my family, the right and the left, let's say, together. So that makes the discussions very interesting, right? And then my dad, he was a diplomat. He had a lot of depression, alcoholism, right? At the end of the day, I have learned to understand and separate my dad from his disease. Because my dad, he was an amazing individual, but there are certain characteristics of someone that is depressed, that someone that has alcoholism, right? That starts to push you in certain direction. When I was a kid, I watched The Lion King, and there is this scene where Simba finds his dad dead, and I don't know why I knew that that was something that was going to happen to me. And then the other movie that I always loved is Good Will Hunting, about this kid that is super smart, but he wants to use his smartness for something good. There is this scene where he goes to the CIA or the NSA, and he says, like, why would I give you the codes knowing that I'm going to kill someone that I never met in my life? Then I saw also this role of Robin Williams, that he was mentoring and guiding this kid. So that's someone that I really valued or mentor, or I really like admire a lot, that character in that movie. Thinking about it with regarding my dad, I wish when I was a kid that he was more present and he would go to my soccer games. And then with the years, it's very easy to judge as a kid, because I feel always there's this phrase that I love in Spanish, but I will try to translate it. It's like, we learn how to be parents when we become grandparents, and we learn how to be sons once we are parents. So once you become a parent, you can actually understand your parents, because it's something that is really hard. Like, how do you balance in a society that is very chauvinistic, that everything depends on the man, and the man cannot express and allow his emotions to flourish, right? How do you express yourself in a society where everyone is expecting something from you? And also, Julian, for example, you are a very handsome individual, but I guess, like, you don't go every day to the mirror and say, "Hello, I'm Julian." And even, like, I know that because Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, they go to the mirror every single day, and they are not feeling like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie every single day, right? And all of us, we have our doubts, and now it's on vogue, this concept of imposter syndrome and everything. But back in the day, it was a topic that was not discussed so much, right? Once my dad died, I decided to go to therapy, and one of the biggest realizations that I got in my life was to understand that my worth is not tied to my achievement. If I achieve something, it's a plus, but I am worth it just because I am, just because I exist. Okay, I'm a Catholic. I practice Catholicism, but for me, it's very funny to see, like, in the Old Testament, just the translation of God is I am Jave. And it's like, when you understand this connection with the higher power, with God, for me, it all makes sense of seeing, like, the problem was not my dad, but also sometimes the structures within the system. And that's when I realized that the point where all the inequality is raised, is starts, is in this inequality of parental leave. Because from that point, all of the weight goes to the women, because then women become more expensive to hire, because maybe they have to take longer vacations. But if there were, like, equal paternity, both men and women could be present for their kids. Both men and women, they would understand how important it is to be with their kids, to play with them. And again, like, I love this phrase from Mother Teresa of Calcutta that says, if you want to achieve world peace, go home and love your family. Like for me, this is something that is so important. There is no achievement in your life that can justify like messing up with your kids, you know? And that's something actually that my dad before dying told me. Like I lost everything for being a player, for going after power. I lost your mom. I lost my family. And for me, it was something that really stuck into myself a lot. He was very young when he died. He was 46. Then I decided, okay, there is this in public narrative, there is this distinction between a wound and a scar. Like a wound is something that is still open, and it's when you talk about it, you can break. And there's a scar where it's something that you treat, that you try to heal. So I decided first to scar my wound, to work on myself. And then I realized like my story is part of a bigger story of all over the world. Like if you see all of the issues of drug addictions and the cartels, and that exists because there is a demand of these products, right? And there is like also like alcohol is like we live in a society where everything is pleasure and just living in the moment, right? When you think about it, the type of life that you want to design, when you base it on values, right, everything changes. Because and then for me it's very funny also when I talk to someone that wants to start like their company selling something, they think that just it's just making a design in a reel in Instagram and then you send it. But no, it's really understanding really which are your values, your mission, your like what you want to achieve with the world. And when you have that very clear, all the rest just goes, all the rest just flows. Just to finish this section is for me it was very important not just to become one statistics, right? I as a son of an alcoholic, I have a likelihood to repeat this story, but I said no, I'm gonna work on myself, and then I took the neuroscience class where I learned about making poses, meditating, which I already knew kind of a bit before because I really like this Huberman Lab. But then I said, no, I also want to share this knowledge with other people. On LinkedIn, everybody's handsome, everybody's successful, right? When you try to show, when you show like your vulnerabilities and your wounds and your scars, like people relate, right? And you start to connect, and people open up to you and tell you, you know what? Like I also have this issue that, and that's the real humanity. Like I don't want to know about how many millions you have, your Ferrari, your Porsche. People really connect with one another in a human level, and I think that's way more important than whatever career you may have. So
I share your sentiments on wanting to have equal parental leave, both the mom and the dad, or for every parent. And it's not only because it should be, because a dad's relationship with their kids is so important. And very, very early on, you have the ability to shape these tiny little people into something that will will reflect your values and your mission. I mean, that you can't control children, but they are a reflection of the parents. Making decisions on making that a priority is super important. I think that you are special. I think you invest in a lot of relationships. I think that just our chats back and forth have shown that. But you've also achieved quite a bit of things. Like you have at least 6 intellectual contribution awards from the various classes that you've taken. How do you achieve that? How do you, like, you are achieving a lot of things, even like top voice in LinkedIn, there's a lot of achievement there.
yeah, for me, I feel like the achievement or the prize or the medal or whatever is like it's just a recognition of something that for me is way more important. For example, the prize is something that I earn once. It's like when you buy a new car. Well, I haven't bought so many cars, but when you buy a new fridge, let's say, at the beginning you're super proud of your new fridge or your new phone, right? And then that feeling lasts 2 days, 3 days. And there is this speech that I love on YouTube about this valedictorian that he worked his a lot to become the valedictorian. He said, yeah, it was something that was nice for 2 days, 3 days. And then it's something that you just accept and then you want the next thing and the next thing. And that taught me two things. First, the focus, instead of thinking in what you are lacking, to focus in what you are having, right? And where you put your value. But then to go to your deeper question is like for me, the relationship and the friendship that I'm building with you, Tiffany, and with you, Julian, is way more important than the price. And at the end of the day, the other day I was talking to a friend that he asked me like, "How do you get it?" And he said like, "Yeah, more or less I know. It's like you start to build connections and relate to one another, and then you help them in this and that. And at the end, after I did the class of power, I learned the power of asking also, right? That all of a sudden, let's say I get to know you, I say just hello, how are you? Can you please give me this prize? Can you please give me the Nobel Prize? You will be like, what the heck? What are you doing? Like, at the end of the day, what I like about these prizes is that they recognize your capacity as a community builder, and for me, also as leadership developer. Because at the end of the day, I've learned so many things regarding design from you, Tiffany, and it's something that I have no idea. I was trying to do the things in a nice way, and what did I have to do is just to share you maybe my knowledge of how to do things maybe on LinkedIn. When you start to help people and to give, and usually we give what we have in abundance, right? So if I give you something that I have in abundance, in a way the other person also wants to give you something back. And for me, and that's the magic of friendship and leadership, right? Because true leadership is not about making you do what I want you to do, but helping you and giving you the tools so you can do what you want to do. Because my values and my story are personal. And for me, I really like this definition of leadership from Marshall Gans, that is a professor lecturer from the Kennedy School, that he said like leadership is accepting responsibility to enable others to achieve shared purpose under conditions of uncertainty. When everything is known, when everything is certain, you don't need leadership. But when you don't know what's going on, what's going to happen, that's where leadership is required. At the end of the day, it's like I love this concept in Buddhism that we have the same in Catholicism. Is you have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha for Christians is Christ. The Dharma are the teachings, that is the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Bible. The Sangha is something that we forget. It's our community, and we have lost that touch at the importance of our community. Like as a society, as a species, we were born to connect with one another. Economics, everything is the study of how we are social beings and how we connect with one another and how we manage scarcity or power politics with one another, right? If we don't know how to connect with other people, what are we doing? Because at the end of the day, like there's that other class, like I haven't taken it yet, that is like living a life of consequence. Like when you die, like how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered by the because there's also people that they just want to have it like having a new Porsche, right? But like people don't care if you drop. Maybe you drop them once and then okay, cool, thank you. But what people care about is having deep discussions, being able to be vulnerable to one another. For me, was finding the other day too in the class of communication with impact, there was this class about like making friends, right? Fast friends is called the exercise where you make the person 10 questions, right? For example, what do you do in a day in your afternoon? How do you if I would ask you now, how is a perfect day for you? You would say maybe I would spend with my daughter, then I would go to the pool, then I would go to play soccer. Then by just telling you how you would organize your perfect day, you start to tell me a lot of things about yourself and what you value, right? And I get to know more from that exercise than from you reading your CV. Because again in the CV in LinkedIn, everybody's handsome, everybody's smart. But when we
That's
get to relate to one another, that's where we connect.
That's so funny. My son asked me that question the other day, and it took me back. He's 9, so he's always coming up with different questions that make me really think hard. Why are you asking me this question? And I think for him, it was more of like, what can I do to help mommy's day be better? And I'm like, for me, that was a moment of success. Is seeing this thoughtful boy that is asking both his father and myself what would be our perfect day, and then in the coming weeks trying to make that happen. And that for me is like worth more than almost anything. It's that connection and like seeing your teaching come to life. It's a proud moment. Anyway,
And
that's what it made
also
me think.
I realized that it's not so common, like that people care so much about this. Like, and I'm from Latin America. In Latin America, that's something that we care a lot about, like our connections, our friends, and everything. But I see, like, in a society that everything is more like in a world that is more polarized and more individualistic, it's very hard to build a community.
It starts with having conversations. I think that's the key is the more we can talk and have dialogue with each other, even if there's certain things that you disagree with them, you can find commonality. I think that's part of what I've gotten out of this building power to lead course is you can find commonality even with potential enemies, right? That's you can find it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a key to building a successful relationship. Is like first to find what do we have in common before talking about our differences, right? And I feel that's actually a huge problem in the US, particularly. Like in the 60s, 70s, I think like 40% of the people wouldn't care if their daughter or son marries someone from the opposite political party. Today it's 4%, right? And that's a problem. We don't talk to one another. And usually we try to categorize people in certain brackets, but we are way more than our identities, our names, our, you can be, I don't know what, and that's something also that you talk a lot about AI, for example, in your show, to understand the biases, right? If I would put a German, most probably would be like a blonde person, right? But there are also black Germans. If I would say, I don't know, an Ecuadorian, usually it will be tan. But I'm also Ecuadorian, you know, and it's just like it's so rich. If I would say a French person, a bonnet, like and a croissant and a coffee, but it's not. I don't see Julian with a bonnet on a coffee and a croissant, you know.
It's because I'm from Belgium. But no, you're right. But I totally get your point. I'm particularly curious on how to maintain a waffle, yeah. How to maintain actually those relationships, because meeting people is really the baseline, and I genuinely enjoy and value this. But you seem to yeah, to have built a lot of basically friendships. How do you maintain these over time? It was also the one of the key challenges. I mean, very well exposed in one of the cases that we read about Russ Walker, a Stanford alumni. So yeah, curious to hear you on this. Do you have any techniques?
Yesterday, for example, I had a friend that visited me when I was in Beijing, and I forgot that they came to visit and that they stay over in my place and that they stay in my bed and I sleep in the couch because there were two girls and they sleep in my bed and I went to the couch. Of course, it's very hard to keep on a daily basis with everyone, but it's very important to first of all like to have your priorities straight, right? So for me, it's God, my family, work, friends. So right now I'm in a position where my kids are small, so I try to spend a lot of time with them. But there's always an opportunity when someone asks you, for example, one friend from the program told me that she was gonna have a very hard discussion with her boss. And I was like, okay, but have you thought about like what's in there for your boss? Yeah, like you know, it's like just sometimes it's not about telling people what to do, but asking them like more or less in a coaching mode, in a pure coaching mode. Because if I start telling people what to do, like I have no idea about like the whole situation or the whole complexity of the situation, right? But when you ask questions, the power of questions is so important, even with kids. Like when you ask your kid back, like, and why do you want to know that? Then you start to get more information. And for me, it's something that I read in an article that one time there was a mom with her kid, and they were going through the street, and the kid asked, "Mom, what is hell?" And that's a very deep question for a kid of 5 years old, right? And the mom like, why are you asking me that? I don't know. There's just something written there that says tacos hell, and she just wanted to know because it was the name of of Mexican food, right? It was written there tacos, but it was not that she knew or she was like thinking about this place that is on fire. Like no, right? And for me that's always very important to understand where the other person is meeting, right? But again, it's like for me it's about, there's this Buddhist concept in Buddhism that also that I really like, that is also in Christianity, that is this giving, charity. It's not about like you don't have a notebook where I write, okay, they slept 2 nights in my house and I gave them a banana and they had like this amount of rice. No, it's like you just give. And I know that with time, for me it was very funny that the last time I saw her was in China, this friend 7 years ago, and yesterday she came again to my house, and it's just reconnecting, and she met my wife, she met my kids, and it's like you see people, and for me it's very funny always to see someone from the past, let's say when we meet again in 10 years, because we're going to remember this discussion, and you're going to remember what happened in that morning and how where you were in that point in your life. So for me, it's that it's like to try to just help, and when someone asks me for something, I help. But that's the problem. My problem that I have, that I'm the type of person that I can be very happy to help other people, but when I need to ask for something, I have a lot of trouble asking. And that's something I learned with from a friend from the program called Agnieszka, a very smart person, that she told me that it's like think of your community, because if you don't know how to ask, what message are you giving to your kids? Like you are the person that are always helping, but sometimes we are a community. And she gave me this example of where there was this person that they couldn't walk and her friends went to the roof and put in a bed to put down so that they could meet Jesus or something. And she gave me, and I was like, yeah, you know, it's like we are a community. If I know that I would die tomorrow or something, I know there's a community out there that is gonna support my family or my friends, and I've seen that also in funerals. Like so many people that they have such a big mark, and I've seen that in my life, like teachers of mine that died of cancer, but that they could have been like very successful lawyers in their country, but they came to Ecuador to educate people, right? The legacy, the how you can help, the impact you can give in the world. Like everybody's focused in your first impression, but it's way more important the impact that you have in the world.
So in Ecuador, you were teaching. Is that something that you would want to do also in Germany, or are you looking to do something? What's next for you?
For me, what something that is very like interesting is to see that ChatGPT developed or like was released September 2022, right? And then 2023 was like the year of explosion, and the fact that I was not working, let's say, allowed me to start playing with all these devices that usually if you would be working full time you couldn't. It was very funny. The other day I talked to a friend and he offered me like a position to start teaching students in a US university how to do prompting, how to do prompt engineering and stuff, which is not so complicated, right? But again, for me, the magic of prompting depends on the person that is giving the instructions. So, for example, if I would say, please write me a speech like Barack Obama, it will give me a blah, 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 blah of like words of Barack Obama uses, but maybe there's not so much sense. But for example, if you don't know the basic of rhetorics, ethos, pathos, logos, if you don't know what an antithesis, an anaphora, like all these things that you learn in school, you cannot improve the prompt in a better way. And also with images is the same. If you don't know what a Pixar type of movie is, or if you don't know what hyper realistic or how a Canon 5D is used, right? Or this type of luminosity that you can have in a picture, it's very hard to properly, right? And I don't know. It's like for me, it's more or less like when a kid starts to play Mario Bros. And in 3 days he already won the World Cup of Mario Bros. Without you even knowing how, because it's very intuitive. For me, sometimes when I have discussions with other people that they are kind of new and they are super busy consulting, for me it's very funny to think like before, for example, to make a PhD application, I would take 3 weeks, 2 weeks, right? And now it takes me 5 hours, no, six, seven, right? But it's just because I know more or less what I want. I know where I could find the academic papers, where I could get like the knowledge. I know more or less how to attack the academic papers in a way where I get like the gist of it without suffering so much, right? The assumptions, and it's like sometimes we take for granted the humanities, but they are so important. How to tell a story, right? So many things, rhetorics, like history, right? What would happen, for example, if I ask what happened to Hitler, and the ChatGPT tells me something like, yeah, Hitler died in a cinema after a terrorist attack. And yes, that happened, but in a Quentin Tarantino movie called Inglorious Bastards, right? But if you don't have your knowledge of history correct, like you could believe that is something that is correct, and that's the biggest problem of artificial intelligence is this power of hallucination, that is this capacity of speaking BS with a lot of authority, right? And so it's very important to know how to catch it when it's
I
telling
think
you what.
you're also touching upon something I kind of talk about on the channel a lot, is that AI or generative AI is a tool. It is what the person is making of it. By itself, it doesn't really do anything. It's in the hands of the professional. Like if you're a professional and you know your stuff, you're going to be able to produce something that is good, but you have to still as a human know what is good. You're the tastemaker to say this is good, or this needs to be edited, or this needs to have some sort of change. I think that's part of humanity that is not really talked about as much in generative AI. It's also like philosophy, like different cultures and religions. How does that, you still have to be the human to put it in and the parameters in order to get something good to come out. Not everybody's going to come out with the same solution unless they understand what good looks like.
And there's like other factors also, like body language, for example. Like what would I say if I would say something like, "Yeah, I'm very calm. I'm blinking a lot." All of a sudden, you would see that I'm nervous or that I have a tick. Like there are like in psychology, like sometimes like the manifestation of your body talks harder than whatever you are saying. and that's something that is very hard to interpret. But I'm sure there's going to be a point where we're able to catch it, right? But we're still not there yet. So
Julian, what do you think about AI, and have you been using it at all?
Yeah, I've been using it absolutely. I love it. I love it. I think it offers so many opportunities and it's become so much part of our daily lives already in such a short turnaround that there is multiple opportunities. Yet I totally agree. The idea of always understanding really what AI is giving us is key, and we need to be all very well aware, very well conscious about this, and we need to see how it evolves. I'm really a big fan of identifying basically what specific AI tools have come up that you can use basically in your daily work beyond ChatGPT. And I know, Tiffany, you use, among others, quite a few different video editing AI related software, and but there are so many of these that it's even hard to keep up with, and that's what makes it so exciting at this time.
That's true. I used to say I will try all of them, but it seems absolutely impossible at this point to try all of the tools. I will try the good ones that kind of populate up because I think it's interesting to play with different technologies. I think that's how we can get to better ideas is if we know what the technology can do and then push out what is possible.
did you
Yeah.
take the class of the strategic leadership?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yes.
just
Remember this
did.
case? No, the strategic leadership. There's a case of the Blu-ray versus Betamax versus PHS.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was early.
And it was like what you're talking is something also that we see in communication with impact is like, for example, when you want to download a song, usually you download the most popular song or the one you don't go to the indie, right? Because in a way you want to see the one that has 5-star rating and stuff. But sometimes it's also good when something is totally new to also try it out. In a way, for example, ChatGPT already it won a lot by being the first releasing this technology. But what's going to happen with Gemini, right? And all the other tools? Because maybe there's the best next tool that is going to happen in tomorrow, because it doesn't have like the 5-star rating that we are going to miss out, right? And that for me the thing is like everybody talks about the internet and how it changed the whole world and how AI is going to also change the whole world. That's for me something that I realized, like talking also with Professor Carol Robin. The only thing that AI is not going to be able to replace is human connection. Like these interactions, one on one, feeling, understanding one another and stuff. That's something that is so important. And I feel also like the fact that we're doing lead in this time of history is also so powerful because it's like how to enhance these leadership skills that before like some people would have in the market or whatever. But this is actually the most important things because before people, I was the other days I think listening to the CEO of Nvidia, and he was saying something like, "We shouldn't teach our kids how to code," because that was something that everybody wanted, right? How to code.
It is our job to create computing technology such that nobody has to program.
And now, literally, with ChatGPT, you can code something super easily, and it can help you, right? So, like these connection skills, also, there was a very interesting study for the Harvard School of Education that was like parents they wanted their kids to learn how to code, and then you have to have another control random trial. You have to have another test, right? So to some kids they teach how to code, and to other kids they taught mindfulness. And at the end of the school, the kids that learned mindfulness they had better grades than the kids that learned how to code. And those are things that we know historically for ages already, for years and years, but we don't apply in our lives. Like this, the pleasure of having a nice dinner with your family, right? Of making breakfast and bringing it to bed to your kids, like to surprise them with things, right? Those are the things that they are priceless. And that's something really that ChatGPT, okay, can tell you, do it. But one thing is to think to do it, to plan to do it, to complain about not doing it. But the actual thing that makes a difference is actually doing the things.
What are you most excited about in this upcoming season?
I would say like the elections all over the world. Like I don't know. For me, it's I help some people in international organizations regarding also like I teach them or I help them with their LinkedIn presence and stuff. For me, like insane the numbers we have reached in terms of impressions and how to craft messages and stuff. It's very sad to see like how the world is today. Like with all the the suffering that is happening in Israel and Palestine, in Ukraine and Russia, and like the polarization in the US, and probably Trump is going to win again. But also, you think about the alternative Biden, it's like, I don't know. I wish someone like Michelle Obama would run, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. I see also like more and more drug dealers entering into politics and financing politics all over the world, and I'm excited about this. Like, we cannot change the world if we don't change people. And there's a speech from Ronald Reagan that I really love where he said, like, how can you love America and not love American? And I feel also the same. How can you love the world and you say you care about the world without caring about humanity? So for me, like, the most important thing is like, this is a challenge for all of us. Like, what can we do to change? And again, I'm going back to Mother Teresa of Calcutta. If we want to change the world, we have to go home and love our family, like to help them develop and to be the best kids that they can in the world. And if I can help a friend, I want to be there.
What are you reading right now, or what should everyone read or watch?
Everybody should read this book. It's a classic now. Thinking Fast and Slow from Daniel Kahneman. I also like this book that is The Cultural Map from Erin Meyer. And then this one I got, and it's a very nice story. Ian Shapiro, he's a very distinguished professor from Yale University, and he came over to Munich. And it was weird that I invited a friend of mine. He's the vice president of the Society of Yale here in Munich. He's like advisor to a minister. Very nice guy. But then his mom recently died, and his dad is already living in an old people's house, right? And he was very sad because it's like, you go to your parents' house and you have to throw away everything, and it's like you feel so disrespectful towards your parents. And at the end of the day, the day is just things, right? So I went there and I told the professor if he could sign the book for my daughter, for Frida Guadalupe, and I put like, because like that it's for her, right? And it is a book about the a lot of Andrew Jackson and populism in the U.S. But what I like, what the professor said is, always ask questions. Like, never stop asking questions, and that's something so important.
Thank you for sharing this, Carlos. You didn't mention the book that I think, if I read correctly, you co-wrote with some other Stanford leaders called The Impact. Could you tell us a little bit?
That book is coming soon. It's about sustainability, but I don't want to reveal too much about it.
It's still confidential at this stage. Okay, so we should look forward to it.
It's coming soon, and there's gonna be a lot of like things coming up about this, but I don't want to be the one person revealing what everybody's preparing me surprise.
Sounds good.
Mysterious. Julian, do you have any last questions for Carlos?
Well, that was about the book. I was curious, but I'll be patient. I'll wait. I think it's a wonderful idea to find basically a way to continue to engage with your basically best allies from your cohort or just from lead. Really creating a book. So without saying what it's all about, but with so many people, I think is an amazing idea. It's not a question, but more of a comment to say.
It's more like about, the topic is impacting, it's about sustainability, right? Because it's the pressing issue of the 21st century, climate change. Like, everybody talks about it, but what can we do about it? Like, and then everybody is bringing their industries, and that's as far as I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, and but without saying more, just this concept of all basically teaming up in the co-creation of a book, I think is a very nice way to continue to engage with, because I think it reflects back on how to maintain relationship, but just with different ways than simple, standard, quick, direct messages. It goes way beyond, and it's very creative.
And it's also a way of learning, right? You come to lead, it's about lifelong learning. It's a lifelong learning experience. And because, again, it's because of the community that you built. And that's, for me, that this part that a lot of people, they just want the diploma, which they hang in a wall and they forget about it. But the community is something that is just amazing, right? And that you can find community in so many different places. But there's, in that group of people, there are people that they have already published successful books. I haven't. Like, I love to write, I love to think, I love to reflect a lot. But another thing is to give a structure to a book and to make a book that people would like to read and would like to buy. For me, it's also very humbling in the sense of I'm learning a lot and I love it.
I think that you're touching on what I value the most out of the Stanford Leads program. It is the community, and it's the network that you have access to, and that's something that from the moment. I think it has to do with my original team. Like Julian's a part of that team where we were just a great group together of understanding different backgrounds and working together across different locations, geolocations. You make of it what you put in, right? I think that's the key to the success of this program is how much effort you put into it is what you will get out of it.
Yeah, and one thing that I would add is like in the last class that I'm doing this communication with impact, we started to do something that I saw in another program that I did is that at the end of every meeting that you have, you do pluses and deltas. It's like you say what you like about the meeting and what do you feel could be improved. And just by saying those things, it's like it's also sometimes we forget that celebration is also a leadership practice. And when we celebrate, like now we have been talked for 56 minutes, the idea is also to give value to other people, right? And I'm really grateful to get to know more about you, about your son that is already asking inquisitive questions. That Julian is from Belgium, not from France. Sorry again for that. And we get to know each other, right? And we make mistakes, and it's part of the road. But it's something that comes with friendship. It's on the way that you start to learn from one another.
Absolutely.
How did it go? How was your wife's first day back?
Yeah. And
Good.
congratulations to. Yeah.
Good, good, good. Like she was very happy. Of course, she's very structured, and I really like that. She woke up very early. She would make herself very guapa. She put makeup, and she was very like she's always beautiful, but she like prepared herself a bit extra and put a nice dress to go back to work. But then the organization with the kids, and when you have kids and you want to leave on time, there's always one kid that wants to do something opposite, and she wanted to bring her dress of Frozen, and she was very cold, so she couldn't just live with that dress. And then she wanted to bring her car that she got for her birthday with her rat that I despise. It's a teddy bear that allows me to say that's so disgusting, and they laugh. But I think they have power over me because they say, "Ah, look the rat," and no, and like that I'm controlling like how they nudge me until a point, and then with the rabbit, and things always going a different way, but there was like a lot of window, let's say, for that time. And I don't know, it was also I had the pregnancy was also hard, let's say. It's also a pregnancy is always hard for a couple, especially in a new country. We were doing lead, a new language, a lot of stress, a lot of expectations, and the fact of having this time of maternity leave allow us to reconnect as a couple, as a family, to go out to eat once in a while. And I think that's very, very important. It's like how to provide your kids with even if you end up, I don't know, divorcing or separating, it's always very important to have a good friendship with the family, right? But I don't want to go that path, so I'm really grateful for these months that we were together here and that we could talk and reconnect, because again, like the pregnancy was hard and the maternity was good.
I
A
think that
honey
is
maternity moon.
how has how has how have things been going for you? It's been about 3 months since the
For me,
last child.
for me, Tiffany, for us.
Yeah, for you, Julian, how has it been?
It's been precious. That's the most of the first word that needs to come out. It's been also an adjustment for sure in a lot of sense. It's been amazing. And yeah, talking about paternity leave, I just also restarted working full time, and but hopefully my wife is still on maternity leave. And I mean everything that you just said, Carlos, makes so much sense. And it's such a unique time that's really the reason I wanted to meet also among others, because I like how you value and you put a perspective on how we should really take the most out of this period, because a lot of people under probably estimate. I personally did the mistake of not, I think, taking enough time during my first paternity leave, and I really didn't want to do the same mistake in a sense with my second. It's challenging, but it's been just the most amazing time.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, the growth mindset. Like we learn from each experience. Like the other day, I went to visit friends that they got twins, and imagine starting your paternity with twins. They were like freaking out, and you could feel already like we were walking the tension between them, right? And then I said like, okay, can you tell me something nice that you value about his paternity and you with him? And I like, have you ever said this to one another? No, this is the first time. Like you get so much into the routine of being a parent, you forget that you're also a husband, and it's also nice to celebrate one another, to be grateful for having one another, because again, like being a dad alone, I imagine now me with the daughter, like I would die. Like the fact that we're a team, it makes everything easier.
Yep, that is definitely, I express that all the time. There's no way I could do it by myself. We don't tell the children this, but it's us against them. So, like we're a team. We're the team. We're a solid front. We're the team. But we can be a team together as well. Sometimes we look at each other like, what just happened? Did, like the life is going by so fast. Even on our dates, sometimes we're both, it's nice to just sit down and then we just pass out after. I remember right after having our second, I think maybe for the full year, any date that we went on, there was a period of nap. Like we just passed out, but you're just tired.
I had friends that went on a date on the cinema and they just slept the whole movie.
Sometimes sleep is the most important thing at that moment. This has been so fun, and I will let you know when this is posted, and I wish everyone luck. Thank you.